Hello, Abigail here with the astrology of this week. This week, dare I say, is actually pretty forward moving. Obviously, there are a few caveats in place, as always. We are currently in the Mercury retrograde shadow, the pre shadow. So, stuff that we're going through now is going to make a resurgence as we move through the month of July. So, just keep that in mind. It starts on January 30th, but we're already starting to feel things, kind of not necessarily come apart, but like become more complicated. Also, Mercury is in Cancer, so this is a very um watery emotional energy. People are kind of acting off of instincts over like what they're seeing and perceiving. The senses are heightened, so just be aware that that's the energy. But we do start off with the sun trine the north node. Now the north node is a place in the sky where eclipses happen, and this is kind of an ever moving point for the human experience. It is kind of like the goalpost that will continually move throughout your lifetime. It is the thing your soul is going towards. It is the story of your future lives. Obviously, it's always tied to the south node. So there's also a sextile to the south node, which is about the past, which is about accumulation of things and energies. And so, with this sun trine the north node, there is an opportunity to move into an unknown future, to move forward. Now, are we ever going to arrive at that future? No, because the minute we get there, it's no longer the future, which is kind of a fun little way the north node exists. Um, but it is an opportunity to kind of project ourselves into a different reality, move the energy forward. This is also sun in Cancer, north node in Pisces. Also, the nodes, once we get into July, the nodes are going to shift. Let me just dig into my notes to tell us when that's going to happen. Um, me being like, I can't remember. Well, that's not helpful. Anyways, they move in the near future. They move definitely in July. And so yeah, we get to have this experience. Okay, here we go. It's on the 26th. They move into Leo and Aquarius. So this is the last time that the sun will be pinging off of these points until they come back around in 18 years, or in 9 years if you count the nodal opposition. It'll just be in switch signs. And it gives this opportunity of projecting into the future, speeding things up. Swift transformation and change can happen under this aspect to this point. Not all astrologers read like aspects to this thing because it's not necessarily an object, but I do because I have found that anytime I see that trine or that square or that sextile in the week it happens, I'm like, that's important. So there's this ability for the self to move forward, to shift a change if you have felt stuck. This week there's an element of things becoming unstuck and forward progression. There's a lot of reasons for this. We do have kind of one stalled aspect, which we'll talk about in a minute here, but overall there's a sense of forward motion and progression, which I think is going to give us just enough leash to get moving, and then the Mercury retrograde will happen and we'll be popped back a little bit. But this is not to say that you should like pull back on, pushing yourself forward, on engaging, because if you do, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, at least your 2 steps forward are that much further, and so your 1 step back will be that much further forward. This is also an opportunity if you want to do past life works, regressions, things like this. Great time for that. This is also a reminder that like while reality exists and we suffer through it, there's also an ability to transcend and to transmute and to move forward. And so I think focusing on that this week, especially if you have stuff that you've been working on and kind of percolating with and wanting, also with the North Node and the Sun trine, there's an element of maybe taking a different approach or getting a message from the universe about a way to do something that is very different from anything you've ever tried before and seems unstable. But I think if you engage and are brave enough to take that opportunity or to shift things or to change things a little bit, you then will harness this energy of forward propulsion and get a lot further a lot faster, without kind of sacrificing stability. We do on Thursday get Sun square Neptune, which is kind of where it's going to be a little sticky. With the Sun square Neptune, though, I don't know that it's necessarily going to slow us down. Actually, I think it's going to give us the perception of being slowed down or hauled up short. we will have to, and it's not because we're actually being slowed down, we are just having to face the reality of something. The Sun square Neptune is kind of pulling back on any illusions we have, any delusions, not necessarily even illusions, but things that we really want that we have built up in our minds. And the Sun is like, hey, 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 let's kind of pull it back in into like a more tangible space, a more material space, a place where we can actually touch and feel things versus these castles in the clouds that we've been building. And I will say, there's nothing wrong with building fantasy. It's the way a lot of us cope in the world and in society. It is just what we're kind of left with when it comes to coping mechanisms. But there's an element of, if you want something real, the Sun square Neptune is like, then we have to have real solutions. And so it's going to feel like it's slowing us down, but it is really us just having to face stuff that we haven't processed, stuff that we haven't worked through, things that we've like I said, built up in our minds to be this great thing. I also think with the Sun trine the North Node in the same week as the Sun square Neptune, um, Sun square Neptune, it is what is real, what is possible. Where can we use our imagination and our ability to create illusion wisely, and where is it unhelpful? This is the time to delineate, to understand, to also choose the coping mechanisms we're using versus just falling into them and maybe them becoming unhelpful or toxic. And so with Sun square Neptune, I also think this is a time to kind of check in with your spiritual life, to check in with anything you've been kind of studying or researching to make sure that you got your toes on the ground and that you are in reality in a sense. But also, Sun square Neptune is an invitation to believe in more. How do I put this? It is an invitation to believe in more for yourself. It is an invitation to push past the limits of reality, but you are going to be faced with reality in a really harsh way. And so being like, no, even though it seems unreasonable that I can own a house, even though it seems unreasonable that I can get a better job in the current economic situation we're in, even if it seems impossible for me to find a partner, I choose to believe. And this is a point along our path where we kind of have a checkpoint of like, how much do we believe in something? How much energy are we putting into it? How do we move forward? While also recognizing that we are dealing with very like real things, which we could argue if time is real, but it's real for us in human bodies. And so facing the facts while also believing in more. It's a very kind of fine balance. And like I'm visually getting like the Two of Pentacles in my mind, which is often shown as someone kind of juggling two round coins. This idea of like recognizing that some things are illusionary and far fetched, but also knowing that the impossible can happen even in the material world. And especially if you are in a challenging position or are not as privileged as some or are lacking resources, this is a week where you're going to have to face that lack, but also to believe that it is possible to shift and move energy in your favor. And it's that commitment that's going to move you ahead, but you have to face the harsh reality of it and also ask yourself, what do I do if it doesn't work out? Which will be difficult. Now, I think with the Sun trine the North Node, I think you should still hang on to your dreams and believe in them. But you do have to face like, what are the consequences if it doesn't, and how do I best care for myself with the information that I have without giving up hope, without succumbing to despair. On the same day, on Thursday, we have Venus trine Saturn, which I actually really like. I enjoy. I think this is going to be great. Um, is it going to maybe feel a bit restrictive? Yeah, but if you want relationships that last, if you want longevity, if you want passion, if you want fire, you are going to have to face Saturnian things. The fact that time does move forward and the fact that it does give us restrictions, but within those restrictions, there is pleasure. It's giving, because Saturn is in Aries and Venus is in Leo, it's kind of giving BDSM. It's giving um, this idea that within restriction and within subversion, there can be an access to certain forms of connection and care that we don't get otherwise. I'm not saying that like we need to all go participate in kink, although you should explore it. It's fun. Even if you like backtrack it and like go back to like a more vanilla existence, having that experience, I think, enriches anyone's life. It's my firm belief. But it is this ability to see the restrictions and see the situations you were in, and rather seeing them as something that binds you and keeps you from something, seeing them as a guide or a channel by which you can move into your most optimal connection, your most optimal care. Like rejection is protection is kind of coming through. Like, not that this is an aspect that is like rejection, but this idea that the restrictions that we encounter often guide us to the best things for us and keep us from kind of falling off the path or getting wrapped up in stuff that slows down our, end goal and our dreams and our desires. And so I think this is, for some, depends on where this is in your chart, depends on where you are in your life, but for some, this is really intense, passionate meetings with people. It's beautiful connections. If you have a partner, the end of this week is not a bad time to explore things in a spicy way, um, as a way to kind of strengthen your bond and your relationship. If you are single or if you are in a more open relationship, this could be within the boundaries of what you have, participating in passion and things that are more of the sexual nature. Now, if we're looking this more from friendships and stuff, this is about kind of looking at things. A lot of this week is kind of looking at things practically. Now, with Saturn and Aries, there is like an urgency, which is going to be interesting, kind of coming up against that Neptune square where we're being hauled up short. So I do think we're going to have, and one set's in a fire sign. Um, and the other set, is um, fire and then water, which brings to mind like steam, obscuring of things. But also, when we have steam, we also know where the source of the steam is coming from. It's like, yeah, I dumped hot water in the sink. And so, with Venus trine Saturn, it is us getting really clear about what we want, about the restrictions that we have when it comes to relationships, about the way we want to connect and care for people and how other people need to be wanted and cared for, and finding structures and systems to create stability for those things. Now, with fire, the stability isn't going to be like what we'd find in an earth sign, for instance, but it's the constant burn of something. How can we maintain a constant flame? And now the maintaining of a constant flame can be a bit chaotic. It's simply the flame that stays stable. Everything else can be nuts, unlike things like earth and water, where like you're not going to get stability with chaos. But in this situation, because we're dealing with fire, it's about stabilizing a consistent burn. How can I feed into my relationships without burning out me and my community? How can I participate in connection and care and passion without kind of throwing caution to the wind to an extreme? And Saturn is here to teach us about slowing down. So there's also an element of maybe you're taking something a little too fast relationally. Could be romantic, could be family, could be a friend. You might find that you were pushing people a little this week. And that's the one kind of thing I would say, just like don't push too hard. Like, I mean, you'll come up against your boundaries and their boundaries a lot faster, but maybe be a little more gentle about it. But there is a sense of going overkill because of the Neptune Sun square. So recognize that this can be a really beautiful, like, meeting someone who has long-term influence on your life, um, connecting with structures and systems and things that work for you when it comes to relationships. For some of you, it's going to be finding an ideological framework to work through your past relational trauma, things like that. Like, it's a very helpful aspect. May it be a lot, especially if like a fire sign enters your life. Yes, trines can always become too much. That's just their nature. But it is a sweet opportunity. And I think with Saturn tempering it, a sweet opportunity to really find things that work. And if you are like, Abigail, I don't have any relationships, which is possible, this is a time to, like, similar to Sun trine the North Node, Sun squared Neptune in a different way, to hone and fine tune the things that you want while also releasing the things that are not as important, because you don't need to add that extra burden on yourself, but focus on the stuff that you really know that you need and have to have. Like, if you really need a partner with a stable job, lock that in. Be like, that's something I really need. If that's not a big deal for you, but you really need someone who like has a similar hobby to you or is also an introvert, this is the week to be like, yeah, and that's what I'm going to go for. Right? Um, Always being open to stuff being different, but like recognizing that there's some things that you know. And when you know, which is a very kind of Aries Leo thing of like this innate knowledge. And so sitting with yourself and asking yourself, what do I know about myself and about my relationships, and how can I harness that to move them forward to create comfort, care, safety, reciprocation, things like that. Then on Saturday, we have Mars sextile Jupiter. Now, Mars is at 29 degrees. Jupiter is 29 degrees. So this is a bit testy, but this is something that is going to move things forward. This is an aspect that is going to take something that you've been stuck on, something that has been delayed, and give it a nice little shove. So Mars is at the late degree of Taurus, Jupiter is at late degree Cancer. There is an element of like Jupiter is going to shift Mars in a sense. It's like the water of Cancer is pushing this rock down the creek bed and rolling it over and making it smoother. And so there is something is going to happen in this moment on this Saturday that a way is made for you. And a sextile is a really supportive situation. And so I think Saturday might feel really tense because of this energy, but on the other side, it feels like it's going to feel like what's the phrase I want? I want to say water rush, but it's not water rush. Watershed moment. It will be a watershed moment, like when there's like a dam and you break that dam. That is this energy in the areas of your life where Taurus and Jupiter are. So, depending on your rising, look at those houses. That's where the themes are going to be for where this is going to be cleared out. And then, we're going to get both of these planets moving in the next few days, which will be real nice. Um, Also remembering that, Venus, that trine with Saturn, is going to be ruling this Mars. And so there is an element of like long term comfort and longevity when it comes to relationships and a flow within it. And then, Jupiter being ruled by the moon, which is a pretty fast moving object, shifting, changing, growing. I'm trying to think, where will the moon be at that point? Um, in that kind of final moment. I should look this up, but it didn't cross my mind. Uh, Currently under a Gemini moon, moving through Taurus. It'll move through Cancer. We might actually have a Cancer moon for this moment. Fun fact: Cancer moon or a Leo moon. Actually, wait. I actually know. I have surgery this week. I had surgery last week, so I need to move these forward. So no, it's not going to be a Cancer moon because by the middle of next week we'll already have moved past Leo, Virgo, Libra. So it'll be like a Scorpio moon or like a Sag moon. Um, Both of those have their things, but both of those are pretty spicy and intense signs. And so there's an element of like moving through this energy, getting through, um, if we have like, yeah, moving through this energy, getting through this moment, either of those two possible moons, there is going to be an element of like intensity and urgency, especially since one is ruled by Mars and one is ruled by Jupiter. And so either way, we're having rulership involved. And so to me, this is kind of a sneaky, really benefic moment. It might feel really intense. You might feel pushed past your limits a little bit because Jupiter does tend to expand things, and Mars tends to also push on stuff and cause harm. So don't push yourself too far, but know that there is something that is going to give. There's going to be some kind of breakthrough. I'll use my chart as an example. Maybe I'll get back to you and tell you if I remember. But like Jupiter is currently in my 11th and then in my 9th. Like it's very possible that I have a breakthrough on something that I'm learning when it comes to how I participate in the collective, or some higher knowledge that I can use on one of my channels or as a resource for other people. Um, but like I said, it is going to feel very pressurized on the day. So while it is very good, it is definitely like someone kicking the door in. It's like a blockbuster spell versus a road opener. It's like the road opener is like, clearing the way. Yes, magic, beautiful. And the blockbuster's like, wham. Then on Sunday, we have Mars going into Gemini, which it will instantly go, well, they won't be exact. It'll be instantly in the orb of Neptune. It'll be conjunct Uranus, not Neptune. Yeah, Neptune. It'll be sextile Neptune, conjunct Uranus, trine Pluto. That won't perfect until the end of the week, next week, not this week. But it's instantly in there. Also important to note, we will have a full moon in Capricorn, and that is the exalted ruler. So a lot of things moving and shifting and changing and um, happening. Also, Mercury retrograde starting on that day. Just know that we are heading into a pretty spicy week. Um, Jupiter will be moving, Mars will be square the nodes. There's a lot happening in the next week. So this is definitely a buildup. And I would suggest using this week wisely to move things forward before we get kind of bogged back down in the energy. On the bright side, this is Mars. And while this can be a lot of aggressive energy, if you've been wanting stuff to get done, or if you've been wanting answers, whether you like the answer or not, we will be getting them. And I think while Mercury retrograde can obscure things, Mercury retrograde also just highlights what's not working. And so do what you can this week, knowing that next week there's a lot of energy of like, and that didn't work, and that's not going to work, and this is going to work, but we have to do it this way and at this time. There's a lot of like really specific energy next week, and Mars is under pressure big time. And we have, Jupiter moving, and like I said earlier, the Mercury retrograde. So just know that this week is a week where we're going to feel forward motion with a bit of frustration, and then next week it's just one damn thing after the other. Not necessarily bad or good, it's neutral. But it is definitely like overwhelming to say the least. Let me see if there's anything else I want to check in here. Yeah, no. So like I said, enjoy the forward motion of this week, enjoy the movement, enjoy the energy going forward. Know that it is being tempered by Sun square Neptune, and that we are headed into Mars being in a rough place. I also don't normally give warnings about like physical astrological stuff, but not this week, but next. We are going to have the Mars Uranus conjunction, and it will fall on the 4th of July. So if you're in the US, you are traveling, or you are around explosives, or you are participating in a lot of people, just be on your toes. A lot of real crazy stuff can happen on a Mars Uranus conjunction. Keep an eye on your kids. This isn't to like sow fear, but it is to say like, don't do anything foolish. This is not the day to like try something new. You might be put in a new situation, but don't put yourself in it. Like, if the universe is going to do it, the universe is going to do it, but like, don't be the one who kind of amplifies this energy, because this energy can be real dangerous, especially with the heightened energy. Also, this is like the United States 250th anniversary, which you can tell how much I adore this country. um, and so just be cautious. I know it's not this week, and I'll talk about it again next week, but it's just one of those days that it's like, don't take risks that are unnecessary, because there will be enough risks on the day without adding to it. I had a client who it was a tarot reading, but I was like, oh, just heads up, like watch out for the 4th of July. And they were like, oh, my sister's like going to be 8 months pregnant, and she wants to know if she should travel across multiple states for the holiday. And I was like, I mean, she can if she wants to give birth in a car or to like be in a hospital where she doesn't know anyone. But like, especially, firstly, I don't really think you're supposed to be traveling at 8 weeks. And 8 months is not the wisest time to travel. And from what I understand, I think it's like her second or third child, and those can be earlier um, than like the first. The first can be a little longer. So I was like, maybe tell her to stay home and like enjoy her life. That's like fun story, not a fun experience. So yeah, just a warning that that's coming up. So if you have plans, this is not like the sign to cancel them, but it is the sign to like take precautions, make sure people are being smart around you. If there are, dependents like children or pets, just be really careful with them, and like don't push anybody beyond their limits on this day, because it's going to be volatile anyways. Especially with large groups and crowds. I personally think we might see a couple of false flags, if you know those are. Anyways, that's just kind of my little pre-warning, so you can kind of pre-game that energy, but like just be cautious, just be careful. Don't put yourself in situations that aren't good for you, and take care of yourselves and do things that are fun, but I wouldn't suggest trying anything new, because if you do, that energy will just be picked up and amplified to the extreme. Anyways, enjoy this week, participate in it in a way that you enjoy and that makes you feel good about what you are doing and about what energetic work you're up to, being open to getting a different shift in perspective and know that something is about to shift and change and move in a big way. And yeah, we're going to feel a bit dragged back into the depths by Mercury retrograde, but we're being propelled towards the eclipses again. I can always tell like a month out, which we're coming up on here in a couple of weeks. Around a month out, I can feel us hurtling towards these really intense energies. And so just know that we're also on track. Those start in August. We're on track for that. We get one in the end of Leo season, one in the beginning of Virgo season. And so just know that we are heading towards bigger things, that a lot of stuff that you've been kind of holding on to and hanging on to is going to happen in the next few months. It is about being open to change, being open to adjusting, looking at things in a pragmatic light and also in a fanciful light and seeing what works for you and what doesn't. Allowing yourself to have fun and whimsy while knowing that, yeah, we sometimes do also have to unfortunately buckle down and participate in whatever this is. Anyways, my loves, thank you for joining me. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe. I love to hear from you, so pop that down in the comments. If you have any videos you'd like me to make, you can pop those down there. I do offer private readings. The information for that is linked below. You can email me directly, or you can book it on my website, or pop into my DMs on Instagram. But I do offer those. I offer not only astrology, but tarot, Reiki, psychic mediumship, and I also do wax readings for fun. So if you're interested in like one of my more unique readings, I would suggest the wax reading. I enjoy them a lot, and they're very unique. Anyways, you have a very blessed week. Enjoy the breakthrough, enjoy the forward motion, and see um, that redirection as a protection, as you being prepared for the things that you want rather than you being kept from the things that you want. Sound good? All right, bye.